Hey, Current Kono here. This video comes from a live stream that occurred while I was on my secondary PC. As a result, some parts of it are a little scuffed. I promise I open my eyes. This is a wild legal story and I really hope you enjoy it.
A Georgia woman is suing a fertility clinic after she gave birth to a baby conceived through in vitro fertilization and subsequently lost custody of the child to his biological parents, according to a recently filed lawsuit. The woman, Christina Murray, 38, is suing Coastal Fertility Specialists, an IVF clinic based in South Carolina, for this devastating mix up, the lawsuit says. The clinic's actions, which led to her losing custody of the baby after months of bonding with him, have left irreparable damage to her soul. Um, so, Chad, yeah, we have a situation in which the wrong baby was implanted into a woman, and she lost custody of the child that she gave birth to after she gave birth to it, after several months of bonding to it, after breastfeeding it, after becoming, a parent to the child. If that happened to someone I know, I would go feral. Me too. I think, any of us would agree that this is an awful situation. And at this point, she is suing the IVF clinic. For what? We'll go through the complaint here in a moment. In a statement issued on Wednesday, Coastal Fertility Specialist said the clinic deeply regrets the distress caused by an unprecedented error that resulted in an embryo transfer mix-up. That was phrased by an attorney. While this ultimately left with the birth of a healthy child, we recognize the profound impact that this situation has had on the affected families, and we extend our sincerest apologies. You'll notice that it doesn't say, we messed up, we screwed up, there was some sort of, negligent thing that happened. There's no explanation for the events. It's just, shit happens. And, that's because they don't want to admit fault. They don't want to admit that there was a mistake that they had, caused, perhaps negligently. So, stories of IVF mix-ups are exceedingly rare. Still, that those do occur are harrowing for all involved, often lead to gut-wrenching decisions about the child's future, sometimes years after the child has been raised by people who are not the biological parents. So just skipping down for a moment, Miss Murray took the child home, cared for him, breastfeeding him, taking doctor's appointments. She avoided friends and family, fearing the obvious conclusion that the child was not hers, and did not post any images on social media. Because she is a white woman, and the child was born an African American, a little, black baby. At a family funeral, she had draped the blanket over the child's carrier so no one could see him, according to court documents. And eventually, she, the clinic said the mix was isolated with 15-year history. She was eventually, basically forced, talking to her attorney, to give up the child. Basically understanding that, the actual child whose, DNA it was, created by, not necessarily who gave birth to it, would, be the one to do that. This is one of the biggest ways an IVF clinic can mess up. This is, top three. That's just straight up malpractice, potentially. How do you mix up embryos don't look, all the same. I think would actually be pretty easy to mix up embryos. So let's take a look at the actual lawsuit, because I do have it. There we go. And this was in the state of Georgia. Not many good things happening in Georgia. First thing we want to take a note of is the fact that Christina Murray is suing both, the actual IVF clinic and the doctor personally, who is a Jeffrey Gray. So, just going through the introduction really quickly, we can take a look at some of the, important facts. That it was readily apparent the defense had transferred an embryo that did not belong to Miss Murray. The child is African American. Miss Murray is white. I almost feel like if you're an attorney drafting this, just for the purposes of having kind of, clarity and mirroring, you should say, Caucasian American, if you're going to say African American. 5 months after giving birth, Mr. Murray had bonded with her baby and definitely wanted to keep the child, but after Coastal Fertility found out the defendant had transferred Miss Murray an embryo belonging to another couple, the stranger couple, they alerted the stranger couple, and the stranger couple sued Miss Murray in family court for custody of the baby. So this mother realizes that she's been implanted with an embryo that's not hers. She gives birth to it. She takes care of it for 5 months. And she then is sued by the biological parents. It's insane. I can't imagine the level of stress that comes from suing her. Why sue her? Sue the company. Well, she has custody of the child at that point, Jace. They were suing her in what's called family court, not civil court, for custody of the child. You couldn't sue the IVF clinic to give them the child that is, kind of rightfully yours. So, Miss Murray would be the only person you could sue in that regard. To this day, Miss Murray does not know if Coastal Fertility transferred yet another couple an embryo that belonged to Miss Murray, and that should have been transferred to her. She does not know if her biologically related child is being raised by anyone else. So basically, Coastal Fertility has no idea, one way or another, or, they have admitted if they know if her child's out there somewhere, if another couple ended up with her child. So, let's take a quick look through the statement of facts really quickly. Why am I going to do this voice? I have to do this voice. Miss Murray is a single woman from Savannah, Georgia, who contracted with Coastal Fertility to assist her becoming pregnant from an embryo created from one of her eggs and a sperm from a donor she selected. And I assume, by the fact that she realized that instantly the child was not hers, that the donor was not African American. Now let's take a look at what's in bold here. So, quoting Dr. Gray, Coastal Fertility proclaimed boldly on its website that clients should know that there is no safer place for their embryos. Chat, press X to doubt if there is no safer place for their embryos right here. Press X to doubt that. X, 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 X. Thank you, Glorious Grapplings. So, in 2020, Coastal Fertility posted a video on its website titled In Vitro Fertilization, in which the company's founder makes the following claims. So what we do is we use the lab to really play the role of surrogate uterus so that the embryos can be put in the lab being a high-quality lab, takes care of them as well as does the uterus. So just more statements about how safe this clinic is. We have the quality assurance and quality controls we need. We do everything we can to double down on improving the quality of care you receive, your eggs you receive, and most importantly, embryo receives. So, Coastal Fertility intended for the public, including Miss Murray, to rely on each of these representations in order to induce the public, to purchase fertility services from them. So, in law, this is what are called representations. Wait, wouldn't the lab be a surrogate ovary and not a uterus? I guess. Maybe? I don't know. So representations are not quite advertisements. So when you advertise your business, it's assumed that you're going to have some amount of sales puffery, that you're going to say, oh, this is the best soft drink this side of the Mississippi. Something like that. Representations are, statements that are intended to be taken as fact about your business, that you have a safe place for embryos. These are meant to induce or, convince folks that they should work with you. Oh my god. No embryo roulette, Nicarian. That is a bad idea. Remarkably, despite knowing for more than a year that it mixed up planes embryos with the embryos of other clients, Coastal Fertility website still touts erroneously that there is no safer place for embryo than its laboratory. So, despite the fact that they have, swapped embryos, they're still claiming on their website that they are the best place, the hugest place. Just going through the lawsuit really quickly, talking about the difficulties with the pregnancy. On December 29th, 2023, Miss Murray delivered a beautiful, healthy baby. Upon seeing her baby, however, Miss Murray knew something was very wrong. Miss Murray is a fair-skinned white woman who had chosen a sperm donor of a similar appearance, and the baby that she carried in the womb was a dark-skinned African-American baby. It was obvious that there was no chance the child was biologically related to Miss Murray. The feeling was terrifying and shocking. The baby came out and was immediately terrifying a white woman. That is... It's kind of crazy that they put that into the complaint. I think, I would consider the optics of that to be a little bit terrible. But what they're trying to do there is kind of really hype up the emotional damages that she was feeling there. Trying to make it clear that she was going through a lot of mental trauma so that she can convince a jury to, award her a lot of money for that mental trauma, presumably. Miss Murray had no issues or concern with the baby's race other than the fact that it indicated the baby wasn't hers. Instead of excitement or joy, the day of her child's birth was dominated by confusion and fear. While attempting to bond with this new baby, Miss Murray anxiously wondered whose embryo was transferred to her, and would someone come to the hospital room and take her child? The answer was yes. Someone would come to the hospital and take her child. So she treated the baby as her own for several months. By late March 2024, Coastal Fertility surmised they transferred to Miss Murray an embryo that belonged to the other couple. Coastal Fertility broke the devastating news to the stranger couple on March 29, 2024, that their male embryo was transferred to another woman, Miss Murray, who became pregnant with the baby. By that point, the child was, 3 months old. Making matters worse, this couple then sued Miss Murray to obtain custody of the child. A subsequent DNA test confirmed that the stranger couple was the genetic parents. After a large amount of money and time, because, IVF costs so much money. Suing people costs so much money. Defending yourself from lawsuits costs so much money. Bit funny to read, but it makes sense because you don't expect a black baby to pop out. True. It's just an awful process. Months of your life just kind of down the drain in a lot of feelings. So this is talking about the damages. So let's get to the legal parts of this. So Chad, we've talked about negligence before. Negligence is what's called a cause of action. You can bring this to try to recover damages against another person, against another entity that have been assessed against you. So damages aren't, like physical damages, emotional damages, monetary damages for stuff that you've gone through. She should at least be compensated for caring, feeding, etc. One would think so. One would think that she should be compensated for that. The issue here would be compensated by whom? By the family? Kind of in a... That's actually really interesting. So that would be, kind of a pseudo-contractual theory, where because she had another child's baby and took care of it for several months, and it was clearly not her baby, that her doing that created a contract between her and the eventual, rightful parents. And she should be, given money for that. I think that makes some sense. Also, the entire childbirth process, true. Also, I don't believe there's going to be any children traded here. I don't think there's any part of the law which allows for children's to be traded. They are not Pokemon. They are unique. They're not chattel property. They are unique living life forms. You can't just be like, I'll trade you my John for your April. So, legal negligence consists of 4 key elements, which all have to be successful for a claim. So first is what's called the duty of care. Duty of care means when a defendant, like a doctor, a hospital, or business, owes a legal duty to the plaintiff. The second element of negligence is breach of duty, where the defendant fails to meet that expected standard of care. So, for example, let's say, you have a doctor. The doctor you trust. There's someone you trust to take care of you, to treat you right. If they breach that duty, that's going to be helping to satisfy negligence. The third element of negligence is what's called causation. The defendant's breach of duty directly causes the harm to the plaintiff. So basically this means the business screwed up. The business owed you a duty. They screwed up. Well, did their screw up cause you damages? If it actually caused you damages, or it was the proximate reason why damages were caused to you, then you can sue them. And the last element of a negligence claim is, damages. Physical, emotional, monetary damages. I'm noting that there's been several mentions of the fact she immediately knew something was wrong with this kid Catholic child, but no statement that she actually bothered to tell the fertility clinic about it. No idea if she was intentional. Does not make me curious. It seems like she tried to keep the fact that she got the wrong baby secret for a period of time in order to try to keep the baby at that point, because she had bonded with it. Bit of odd question of plaintiff in, is there any precedent of a situation like this, confusion, malpractice, etc., leading to misalignment of child, resulting in legal action by the children themselves? Not by the child themselves. I'm not sure what rights the child would have in that situation. It seems more like, this is sponsored by the parental rights to have the correct child. Thank you, Billy Goat. So, here, they're going to make claims that defendants and their agents' employees undertook to care for plaintiff and her genetic material. They owed her a duty of care to not fucking switch up her embryos wrong. Defendants had a duty to render this care. They had they had a duty to use reasonable care in the storage of these embryos. And they, failed to meet those. They breached their respective duties by failing to monitor, label, and utilize Miss Murray's genetic material in accordance with her express directives to put the correct baby inside of her. So here the theory of negligence is basically, the embryo clinic were doctors. Doctors owe you a duty of care to give you correct medical care, put the correct baby inside of you. They screwed up. They didn't meet that. We're not exactly sure why the screw up happened, so we're just going to allege it could have been anything. We'll figure that out in discovery. Their screw up is the reason why there was the wrong baby inside of her. So the only issue left is, what are the damages? Is it, the cost, that the healthcare cost of having the child? Is it the stress of those 9 months of being pregnant with the wrong baby? Well, that stress would have happened, be it their negligence or not. Like, if she had the right baby inside of her, she still would have had to spend, 9 months, with a swollen belly taking care of that wrong baby, or the right baby. So I'm not sure, that pre-utero time really counts. But, the childbirth, the months afterwards, the other lawsuit, feeding the child, the pain of childbirth. If she wants a baby now, she's going to have to do that again. And I'm not sure, chat, woman or not, type 1 if you would try to give birth again after having the wrong baby. I think that would just scar you. Welcome in, Rathalos. I just don't think you could have another kid after that. But you're a man, Juggernaut? Yes, you are a man. I'm asking you to be empathetic. I'm asking you to put yourself in the shoes of that other person and to think, of what they're doing. Just try it. I know it's hard. I'm sure you can do it. You're good, Juggernaut. All right. So, yeah, that's a legal claim for negligence. I think the main issue here is the damages aspect because, the time being pregnant, she would have already had to do that. The actual pain of childbirth, I'm not sure how you monetize those damages. I mean, how much... I think the question you have to ask yourself is how much money would you have to be paid in order to go through childbirth for the wrong kid that's not going to be your kid? I think there's 2 ways of doing that. I think one would be looking at what the rate for having someone carry your child to term for you is. And I think, that can be like 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 grand. Or, have the jury just think, how much money would I have to pay you to have a child for someone else? And that could be, $1 million. Like, yeah, that would be insane. I agree. I expect the use of race for hiring a surrogate normally. Yes, but the issue is that this was like a non-consensual surrogacy. So that non-consensual element to it is important. All right, so then, we have a couple other causes of action, not just a negligence theory here. Gross negligence is basically just the idea that this is so out of pocket, this is so crazy, that, this rises above regular negligence. They had to really screw up for this. Bailment. Chat, this is the first time I've ever seen bailment brought as a cause of action. I had to go and look up what bailment was because I learned about it in my 1L property class, 9 years ago. So, to establish a claim of bailment, the following elements must be presented. 1. Delivery of goods. The bailor, that's the person with the goods, delivers the goods or property to the bailee. This can be an actual physical handover, like, giving your embryo to someone. Acceptance by bailee. The person receiving the property has to knowingly accept the goods. Yeah, the fertility clinic had to accept the embryos. Third, there has to be some sort of agreement between the two parties. This would be, the agreement between Miss Murray and the company to keep her embryos. For is a duty of care by the Bailey. The Bailey must be exercise reasonable care in handling the goods and return them in the proper condition. They have to return the embryo, the right embryo inside of you. Failure or return or damage. If the Bailey fails to return the goods or returns them in damaged condition due to negligence, the bailior can sue for breach of bailment. This is such a wild cause of action to include because it treats, thank you for the hydrate, it treats a human embryo as property. Which is wild. I mean, it kind of is. But it's just like, or the duty of care and prudence to ensure that at least one of the embryos was transferred to her uterus. It's transferring back to the uterus. What's the value? With the property, it's what is the value of an embryo? Really? Because this isn't like for her damages or what happened. This isn't for like the consequential or resulting damages. This is what is the value of an embryo? What is the property damage for not returning an embryo? This is the thing, because people who undergo IVF treatment are usually people who desperately want a child. Yes, she is close to the end of her 30s. She probably can't have a child on her own right now, or otherwise can't. This is the one thing she wanted most of her life, and it's been ripped away from her. This is like asking a mother how much her child is worth. Yes, but that's what the jury's going to have to figure out. That's the crazy thing. The jury's going to have to sit down and say, what's the value of this embryo? What are the damages for giving birth to someone else's child? What should we give the mom the cost of food and raising the child for 3 months? Should we give her childcare costs? How do we set up what childcare costs are? If this goes to trial, it's going to require a dozen experts. Childcare experts, pain experts, medical malpractice experts on both sides. I literally like hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal costs, maybe $1 million in legal costs on both sides. So they should settle. Breach of fiduciary duty. Was I going to talk about this? No. Fiduciary duty is basically where one individual has to act as a fiduciary to do something that is promised. Think of this like as a financial fiduciary who you give your money to, and it's their job to make more money for you and then give that money back and not to abuse your money. The theory here is, we trusted you with our eggs. Give me back my eggs.
The Constitution says you do.
Fraudulent concealment is the fifth cause of action, the last one I wanted to talk about. So earlier, when we were talking, we talked about, the claims that the IVF center had made during their on their advertisement on their website about how safe they are. I'm so glad that the one time I was on jury duty covered nothing remotely like this. Most jury duty is simple. Most jury duty is car crash, sold a faulty car, I broke my leg and the doctor really didn't fix it right. Not like this. So fraudulent concealment is a cause of action where first the defendant has a legal duty to disclose a material fact to the plaintiff. So here, the fertility clinic had a duty to inform patients about mistakes involving embryo implantation. They're basically, they're making these representations that they are super safe and failing to disclose that maybe they're not the best or most safe. Concealment, is actively hiding or failing to disclose an important fact. Maybe we're not the most safest place ever. There has to be an intent to defraud or alternatively to induce reliance. Basically what this means is you're making these claims so that another party will do something, give you their money, give you their business, move forward with working with you. And fourth, the plaintiff has to be genuinely ignorant of the fact. You have to have no reason to suspect that these are not true. You can't just be like, oh my god, I had no idea that this place wasn't safe in the IVF clinic. I didn't know my embryo wouldn't be safe. And then when you went to the IVF clinic, you saw them like literally taking the embryos and throwing them into dumpsters, and you just saw them just doing everything wrong. You have to be truly ignorant of those facts. So here, earlier we were talking about in the statement of facts. So there was no safer place for client's embryo than Coastal Fertility Laboratory. Coastal Fertility Laboratories take care of its customers' embryos. Laboratory has quality assurance and quality controls it needs. It does everything it can to double down on improving the quality of care you receive, the eggs you receive, and the embryos you received. So these facts were on its website from 2022 and 2023 and are why, the plaintiff relied on its representation to pay for it to perform IVF services. Plaintiff would not have purchased such services from Coastal Fertility if they did not promise to do these things, to be safe. And plaintiff did not reasonably or could reasonably have discovered their deception prior to purchasing these services. So basically, she's alleging they knew they were unsafe. The question is, were these actually being fraudulently concealed? Like, did she have any reason to think that they were unsafe? Did Coastal Fertility ever have a mix-up prior? Did Coastal Fertility ever have any issues that caused people to think that maybe internally embryos weren't reaching the right place? If there wasn't, if these are statements that are being made by the company who has genuinely not had any issues before, I don't see how you can say this is fraudulent concealment. They didn't mean to screw up. This was a genuine screw up. They didn't try to induce you. They didn't try to lie about their safety. They genuinely believed that they were safe. So I think that's probably going to be very difficult. I think the only way this goes south for Coastal Fertility on this cause of action is if during the discovery process, it comes out that they had made these mistakes in the past. If they had been hiring folks who maybe had poor medical records or poor work records for the medical work. If the plaintiff here, Miss Murray, can, establish the fact that Coastal Fertility had fucked up in the past, that it had bad employees, and they were still making these representations, I think they could have a pretty strong claim here. So that's the IVF case. I think if this thing goes to trial, it's going to be absolutely insane. I think it's going to require a dozen experts on both sides. I think it's going to be tackling really difficult issues of, what is property, what is the value of childcare, what is the value of a human life. And everyone's going to lose, and it's all going to suck. So, chat, I told you I would make you all happy today. We got the good stuff today.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that video and learned something. Please don't forget to leave a like, and if you think you know more than me, leave a comment and I'll take a look. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you want to let the algorithm feed another legal video down your gullet, please click on your screen right now. Thank you.